Elves are one of the most powerful races in the Lord of the Rings universe. Their long lives have given them time to perfect their abilities in combat and given them ageless wisdom. The Commander Elves from Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth are no different, and they are some very fun cards that came out in the set. Let's take a look at all the legendary elves and see which one is the most powerful and fun to play. There are 18 new legendary creature cards, while there are only 9 differently named creatures. Arwin, Celeborn, Círdan, Elrond, Earthstore, Galadriel, Glorfindel, Haldar, and Legolas. Let's dive into these different versions and see which ones are the most fun and powerful to play. But before we do that, if you aren't subscribed yet and enjoy content like this, please do so. I put out a couple videos a week, including Commander deck techs, set reviews, rule mechanic explanations, and so much more. Now let's go back and see which elf from Lord of the Rings is the strongest. Starting off with Arwin, we have Aragorn and Arwin Wed, Arwin Mortal Queen, Arwin Undamul, and Arwin Weaver of Hope. Right off the bat, the two cards that are the most powerful from these are Aragorn and Arwin Wed and Arwin Weaver of Hope. Both of these are very good elves that focus on putting lots of +1/+1 counters on your creatures. Arwin Weaver of Hope gets more powerful the more counters it has placed on it, but I believe this would be a better 99 card because it will continuously get removed and you'll be left with a board full of small elves and a very expensive commander. And while Arwin Undamul also puts counters on creatures, it's only one at a time. And unless you have a lot of setup in place, you're not going to be able to use it very effectively. Arwin Mortal Queen is okay, but after you cast her and use her ability, there's really not that much you can get out of her after that. So my top pick for Aragorn and Arwin are definitely Aragorn and Arwin Wed. This provides enough value that I think is the best of the bunch. Getting a bunch of life and buffing all your creatures makes it so you can accelerate really quickly. This is a really cool card, and with enough green ramp and elf spells, you'll be able to play this very fast. Celeborn the Wise and Círdan the Shipwright are two unique commanders to the Magic the Gathering universe. Like we saw with Arwin, Wizards introduced a scry mechanic to elves that has varying effects. Celeborn by himself is not a strong card because he doesn't have any evasion abilities, and really not a card I would use as a commander at all. Círdan is a completely different story though. This was really the only elf out that I thought was actually fun for everybody at the table. His Secret Council ability is a ton of fun, and each player secretly name another player. When it's revealed, if you got a vote, you get to draw a card. If you didn't, you get to put a permanent onto the battlefield. This is a super fun and cool card that could really cause some awesome shifts in the game. The mental fun of trying to figure out how to use this ability and either get somebody to fill up your hand or let you play something on the battlefield for free is a really cool idea. And because it is an attack trigger, you might have players actually let you hit them if you're able to gain some value off it. So I think it's not the strongest card, but it seems really fun. Elrond is next, and he's a staple character in the Lord of the Rings universe and comes with some cool variations to build around. Elrond Lord of Riverdale and Elrond Master of Healers are both scry commanders again that offer some different value. Neither of them I think are super good, but Elrond Master of Healing could potentially be very powerful if you're able to consistently scry for more than one and give your stuff some good value. Elrond of the White Council I think is the actually really strong card in this set because it makes your opponents choose between taking one of their creatures or placing counters on your creatures. If everyone doesn't want to give you a creature, you could put a +1/+1 counter on every creature you control 4 times because you're probably going to pick this mode as well, which is really great. Or you're going to get a creature from everybody's board, which is going to make your board bigger. You can also return Elrond to your hand and do this multiple times a game to create a massive board of creatures and power. Esther of the Council is a support card that really only works in commander decks because green and blue don't have a lot of voting effects to make this card worth its value. With some of these voting effects not providing significant value to the controller, players need to be enticed in order to vote for you by gaining some value. You end up drawing a card either way, so it's fun, but not the most powerful. Galadriel is another important noble in the Lord of the Rings universe and comes with some unique effects between the different types. The face commander for the Elven Scrying deck is Galadriel, Elven Queen, and really isn't great in my opinion. Her Will of the Council ability can only be activated when you play an elf, and you're either just putting a counter and doing the ring tempts you or drawing a card, and neither of them are terribly powerful cards, especially for Simic. Next is Galadriel, Gift Giver, who isn't that great either, and I believe is more of a flavor card that is fun, but maybe you're more interested in her than I am. Galadriel of Lothlorien is actually quite powerful in helping you ramp for free after all of your scrying. This is definitely a threat, and you can basically ramp multiple times a turn while thinning your deck and putting what you want on top. Her first ability is okay as well if you can get some ring triggers, but you're not going to get nearly as much value as you are off the second. If you pair this with some landfall triggers, this can be insane. Glorfindel, Dauntless Rescuer, and Haldir, Lorien Lieutenant are our next two cards, and they do actually provide a fair amount of value as commanders. Glorfindel works well with scrying by getting bigger for a short amount of time and either forces an opponent to block or makes it harder to block. This commander is very powerful in the beginning of the game because most of the boards are empty to get some early damage in. It is also when you scry, so it has the potential to get really big really fast. Haldir is also a pretty cool card because it enters the battlefield with X counters on it equal to what you pay to cast it. And for only 6 mana, you can buff all of your creatures equal to the power it entered with. This effect can be triggered multiple times and can be triggered during combat, so it can easily finish out the game with a surprise knockout. This is definitely one of the most powerful creatures as well. Legolas is the last Lord of the Rings elf commander to talk about. It might be the best all-around commander with all of its different versions. Legolas counter of kills gets bigger when a creature an opponent controls dies and can untap whenever you scry, but it's only limited to once each turn. This can grow pretty big pretty fast. Legolas Greenleaf is from the commander deck and has a lot of text. It can't be blocked by creatures power 2 or less. When another legendary enters, it gets bigger, and when it deals combat damage, you draw a card. And lastly, Legolas Master Archer gets bigger when he is targeted by a spell, and when you target another creature you don't control, Legolas deals damage to them equal to his power. This is a pretty unique ability that deals with spells in mono green that only targets your opponent's stuff. This card seems pretty versatile and should allow for some very interesting deck building strategy. Now that we've looked through all these commanders, let's take a look at the most powerful cards to see which one is the best. Aragorn and Arwin wed, Elrond of the White Council, Galadriel of Lothlorien, Hadar, Lorraine Lieutenant, and Legolas Master Archer are the best out of the bunch. The first two I'm going to cut right away, in my opinion, are Hadar, Lorraine Lieutenant, and Legolas Master Archer. These are really cool and powerful cards, but if they keep getting removed, you really have nothing to show for on your board. The next one is going to go to Elrond of the White Council. I think he's a great card and can be super powerful. He costs a bit to cast, and if your opponents have a bunch of weak creatures to give you, you're not going to get much value off of him. And lastly, my number one pick for the best elf commander from Lord of the Rings, Galadriel of Lothlorien. This card being in a deck focused around scrying will put you so far ahead, and if you can also add in landfall, no player is going to be able to catch up with you. The cost difference is also super big because you can get this out on turn 2 if you play one of your mana dorks on turn 1. The elves from this set were hit or miss, and if you enjoyed this video, check out my best elf commander video of 2023, where I look at all the best elves from Magic the Gathering's past and compare them to the power creep of Magic today. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, please subscribe to my channel. This is such a great video topic, and it was from one of my viewers. Thank you so much, Andrew Nim. This was a great video suggestion, and I really appreciate it. And if you really like this video, please share it with somebody. It would really mean a lot. And today's Scryfall card of the day is Prosthetic Injector. Why carry a subject to a surgical lab when you can bring the surgical lab to them? Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you later, Planeswalkers.